Hey y'all, here's the answer key for homework number 20. It's on pages 13 and 14 in your packet, so turn to those pages and let's get started. The directions say solve each proportion and find your answer in the code. Each time the answer appears, write the letter of the exercise above it. And we're trying to answer the questions, what should the Jolly Green Giant receive? And why did it take the goat more than 3 hours to finish a 20-page book? So hopefully we get some clever answers there. So in this first one, I have 2 over 5 equals 12 over n. So I'm going to solve this proportion. I multiply 2 times n together. So 2n equals, and then I multiply 5 times 12. 5 times 12 is 60. To solve this proportion, or to get n by itself, I know that I need to undo that multiplication. So I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides of my equal sign. My 2's cancel out and n is by itself, and 60 divided by 2 is 30. So n equals 30. That right there is my answer. So I'm going to look for 30. So I see a 30 right here, and I know I'm going to put an I. And is there a 30 in the second one? I don't see one. Okay, so let's move on to the S. So we've got 3/4 equals 9n. So I'm going to multiply 3 times n together. So that's 3n equals 4 times 9 is 36. So now, how do I get that n by itself? Well, I know I need to undo that multiplication, so I'm going to divide by 3 on both sides. So n equals 36 divided by 3 is 12, so n equals 12. So anytime I see a 12, I'm going to put an S. So I see a 12 right here. That's an S. That's the only 12 I see there. But here's a 12. Is there any other 12? I don't think so. Moving on to G. I've got 6 over 2 equals 21 over n. So I'm going to multiply 6 times n together. That's 6n. And I'm going to set that equal to 2 times 21, which is 42. Now, to get that n by itself, I need to undo that multiplication. So I'm going to divide by 6 on both sides. So n equals 42 divided by 6, which is 7. So n equals 7. So anytime I see a 7, I'm going to put a G. So I don't see a 7 in the first question, but I do see a 7 right here, so I'm going to write G. Okay, moving on to O. I've got 10 over 4 equals n over 6. So I'm going to multiply 10 times 6 together, that's 60, and I'm going to set that equal to 4 times n, which is 4n. Now, to get that n by itself, I need to undo that multiplication, so I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides. Over here, my 4's cancel out and n is by itself, and 60 divided by 4 is 15. So 15 equals n. Now that's the same thing as writing n equals 15. So if you write it that way, that's perfectly fine too. You have the same answer. So every time I see a 15, I'm going to write O. So I see one right here. That's the only one I see in that top row. In the bottom row, do I see any 15s? I do not. Okay, moving on to Y. I have 5 over 15 equals n over 9. So I'm going to multiply 5 times 9 together. That gives me 45. And set that equal to 15 times n, which is 15n. Now to get that n by itself, I'm going to undo that multiplication. So I divide by 15 on both sides of my equal sign. My 15's cancel out, and n is by itself. And 45 divided by 15 is 3. So 3 equals n, or keep in mind, you could write that as n equals 3. That's the same thing. Okay, so every time I see a 3, I'm going to write Y. So I don't see a 3 in the top row. I see a 3 right here. And I saw another 3 at the very end. Okay. Moving on to t. I've got 12 over 8 equals n over 4. So we multiply 12 times 4 together. I know that that's going to be 48. And 8 times n is going to be 8n. Now, how do I get that n by itself? Well, I need to undo that multiplication. So I'm going to divide by 8 on both sides of my equal sign. My 8's cancel out, and n equals 48 divided by 8, which is 6. So 6 equals n. Keep in mind, that's the same thing as writing n equals 6. I'll take either answer. So now that we know that, anytime we see a 6, we need to write t. So I've got a t right here. I've got any other 6s? Nope. Nope, there's a 6, so t. And that's it, just those two. Now let's look at our u. So I've got 2 over n equals 5 over 25. So I'm going to multiply 2 times 25 together, and that gives me 50. And then I'm going to multiply 5 times n, so 5n. Now, how do I get that n by itself? Well, I need to undo that multiplication, so I'm going to divide by 5 on both sides of my equal sign. On the right-hand side, those 5's cancel out, and n is by itself. Now, 50 divided by 5 is 10, so 10 equals n. Keep in mind, if you write that as n equals 10, that's the same thing. Okay, so now, every time I see a 10, I'm going to write u. So in the top question, I don't see any 10s. And in the bottom question, I see one right here. Okay, that's the only one I think I see though. Okay, moving on to A. 33 over n equals 11 over 3. So we first multiply 33 and 3 together. I know that that's going to be 99. And I set that equal to 11 times n, which is 11n. So now I'm going to undo that multiplication to get that n by itself. So I divide by 11 on both sides of my equal sign. On the right-hand side, the 11's cancel out, and n is set equal to 99 divided by 11, which is 9. So 9 equals n. So anytime I see a 9, I'm going to write A. So in the top row, I've got a 9 right there. I'm going to write A. Is that the only one? And right here, I've got an A. And those are the only 9s that I see. Okay? For letter L, I've got 49 over n equals 7 over 10. So I'm going to start by multiplying 49 times 10. I know that 49 times 1 is 49, but I'm just going to add that 0 to it. So it's 490. Now I'm going to set that equal to 7 times n. Now to get that n by itself, I need to undo that multiplication. So I'm going to divide by 7 on both sides. On the right-hand side, my 7's cancel out, and n is by itself. Now, 7 goes into 490. I know that 7 goes into 49 7 times. And I'm just going to add a 0 to represent that 490. So 70 equals n. 70 is my answer. So anytime I see 70, I'm going to write L. So I know I've seen a 70. There it is. And that's the only one that I see. Okay, moving on. Right here for V, I've got n over 6 equals 6 over 9. Okay, so I'm starting by multiplying n times 9, which is simply 9n, equals 6 times 6, which is 36. To get that n by itself, I'm going to divide by 9 on both sides. My 9's cancel out, and n equals 4. So anytime I see a 4, I'm going to write the letter V. So in the top row, I don't see any 4s, but in the bottom row, there's one right there. Any other 4s? I don't think so. Okay, let's look at the Z. I've got n over 4 equals 18 over 72. Well, let's start by multiplying n times 72. That's going to give me 72n equals, and then 4 times 18. I don't know that off the top of my head, so 18 times 4. Well, 4 times 8 is 32. Carry my 3. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7, so I get 72. So 72n equals 72. Well, to get that n by itself, I need to divide by 72, and I do that on both sides. Over here, my 72's cancel out, and I'm left with n. And I know that 72 divided by 72 is going to be 1. So n equals 1 is my answer. So anytime I see a 1, I'm going to write the letter Z. So right here, are there any other 1s? I don't see any. Okay, so let's continue on with H. I've got n over 2 equals 50 over 20. So I'm going to multiply n times 20, and that gives me 20n. And I'm going to set that equal to 2 times 50, which is 100. Now to get that n by itself, I'm going to divide by 20 on both sides. My 20s cancel out, and n equals, one thing I can do here is cross out one of the zeros. Now, how many times does 2 go into 10? 2 goes into 10 5 times, so n equals 5. So anytime I see a 5, I'm going to write the letter H. So I got to put in 3 letters that time. Okay. Moving on to W. I've got 14 over n equals 7 over 4. So I'm first going to multiply 14 times 4 together. So 14 times 4. Well, 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So I get 56. And I'm going to set that equal to 7n. Now to get that n by itself, I'm going to divide by 7 on both sides. My 7's cancel out, and n is set equal to 56 divided by 7, which is 8. So n equals 8. So anytime I see an 8, I'm going to write W. Okay, so an 8 is what I'm looking for. Oh, right here. Any other 8s? Nope. Okay. So let's look at this one here, E. So I'm first going to multiply 8 times n together. That's 8n. And set that equal to 12 times 12, which is 144. Now to get that n by itself, I need to divide by 8 on both sides. My 8's cancel out, and n equals. Now I'm not sure how many times 8 goes into 144, so I'm going to show my work over here. 8 goes into 14 one time, which is 8. 14 minus 8 is 6, and I bring down this 4. How many times does 8 go into 64? Well, it goes into 64 8 times, which is 64, and there is no remainder. So I know that n equals 18. So anytime I see an 18, I'm going to write E. Get to write lots of E's. Okay, so I think that's all the 18s in the top row. Here's an 18 in the bottom. Are there any others yet? And I think that's it. Okay, so that helped me fill in quite a few letters. Okay, for B, I've got n over 13 equals 4 over 1. So I'm going to multiply n times 1 together, and that's just simply going to be 1n. Now, we've talked about this before. When you have a 1 in front of your variable, is it necessary? No, it's not. So in fact, I'm actually just going to write this as n. So n equals 4 times 13. Well, 13 times 4, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So I get 52. N equals 52. Okay? So let's go see if there are any 52s, and if there are, let's write the letter B. So here's a 52. Any others? I don't think I see any other 52s. Okay? So R, 24 over 6 equals n over 5. So let's start by multiplying 24 times 5 together. Well, 24 times 5, 5 times 4 is 20, 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 makes 12. So I have 120 equals 6 times n, which is 6n. To get that n by itself, divide by 6 on both sides. So n equals, well, 6 goes into 12 2 times. So I'm just going to add a 0 to that. So n equals 20. And that is our answer. So anytime I see 20, I'm going to write the letter R. Okay, I think that's the only one that I see. Okay, for n, I've got n over 10 equals 40 over 25. So let's multiply n times 25 together. That's 25n, and set that equal to 10 times 40. Well, I know that 1 times 4 is 4, and then I'm just going to add those 2 zeros to it to get 400. Now, to get that n by itself, I need to divide by 25 on both sides. And I know that 25 goes into 100 4 times. But this is 25 going into 400. So it should go in 16 times. So let's just check that. 25 goes into 400. 25 goes into 40 one time, which is 25. When I subtract, I get 15, and I'm going to bring down the 0. 25 goes into 150 6 times, and I get 150. So 16 is our answer. N equals 16. So anytime I see a 16, I'm going to write the letter N. So any other 16s? Okay. So last letter P. So I've got 24 over n equals 30 over 100. So 24 times 100. Well, I know that 24 times 1 is 24, but I'm going to add those 2 zeros to it to make 2,400. And I'm going to set that equal to 30n. Now to get that n by itself, I need to divide by 30 on both sides of my equal sign. My 30s cancel out and n is by itself. Now I'm going to use this trick where I take off one of those zeros on the top and bottom. So how many times does 3 go into 240? Well, 3 goes into 24 8 times. So then I'm just going to tack a 0 onto that. So 80 times. So N equals 80 or 80 equals N. So anytime I see 80, I'm going to put the letter P. So 80. Okay, so I feel like we have the answer for number 1. What should the Jolly Green Giant receive? The Nobel Peace Prize. The Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, so I feel good about that one, but I think I might have missed something in number 2. Why did it take the goat more than 3 hours to finish a 20-page book? He wasn't, I think it should be very hungry. So notice I'm missing 20. So that should be probably be our R's. And look, I got 20. I just somehow missed writing those in. So we're going to write those in. He wasn't very hungry. So, oops.